go ahead.
Yes, you are in the right spot. Welcome to GB
QC.
Yes, sir. This is our weekly show. We're going to air every single Sunday here. Now, we did episode 1. We did the first part on Quincy's channel. So if you have not had an opportunity to check that out, please go over to Quincy's channel, check that out, and subscribe. Part 2 is right here on the Barbershop. We will be doing this every single week. So make sure you subscribe to the Barbershop. Make sure you subscribe to the Worst Takes over with Quincy. And we're going to be giving you some great content. So, Quincy, we was talking just a moment on in part 1 a little bit about the situation with the Browns and the passing attack, and let's get into the human nature side of this thing a little bit. We were talking off camera, and I thought this was a great topic to get into. You know, when the Browns got Odell Beckham Jr., you know, for me, I was just I couldn't believe it, because I was like, wow, we got Odell and we got Jarvis. This is crazy. We about to have one of the best. Like, we got Chubb, we got Baker. Baker, who was coming off one of his best years, one of the rookie of the year, broke the touchdown mark for single season, and it was just like, I thought we was just off and running. But for me, it just seemed like there was a lot of people that never quite truly embraced Odell Beckham. Like, it was kind of like it was mixed feelings from the get-go. Like, for me doing the radio show, it was just like people was just like, I don't know, man. I don't know about Odell Beckham. And it was just like from day one, it was like they never gave it a shot. So I was just kind of like, from your thought process and some of the people and your subscribers and the people that you talk to, do you ever get the feeling like, you know, what's your pulse on it? Did Odell ever really get a fair shake, in your opinion, in terms of, you know, getting embraced by the city?
Yeah, with the Odell thing, like, it's always the second somebody gets an opportunity to pounce on them, they take it. And it's not like that with other players. Me and you were talking about Jarvis Landry, right? Him and Jarvis are almost identical people, but they could not have different reputations within this city, right? Like, for whatever reason, the narrative that Odell was his diva, that, you know, Odell is going to be this malcontent, that Odell is this, that he's too big, all this stuff kind of really stuck with Browns fans in a way that those narratives didn't carry over with Jarvis from Miami, right? Because Jarvis had the same stuff that people were saying about him in Miami, right? That he's not a great leader, that he's not great at this and that, and he hurts people and all that. You know, people used to say Jarvis was a dirty player back in those days, but that stuff didn't carry over to Cleveland. And with Odell, it just hasn't gone away from him. Like, he can't get away. Now, part of that is because he hasn't been able to put out those like 150-yard games that he used to, right? Like, it just, for whatever reason, Freddie Kitchens right now with Baker, it just ain't, it's never clicked. We've never had that cathartic moment with Odell. I think the closest thing we had was that Cowboys game last year, right? Where he had like 3 touchdowns and won this game. But we haven't had enough of those cathartic Odell Beckham moments. It's always been, and then I think what's added to it, right, is that the way that it's kind of been talked about with Odell is they've been him and Baker Mayfield have kind of been juxtaposed each other for most of their run here in Cleveland.
I've never heard of that. Out of any other players, I've never heard it like, oh, it's Devontae Adams versus you know Rodgers. I've never heard that with receiver and quarterback ever.
Yeah, and it's not because of anything they're doing, right? It's kind of how it's just being reported, right? Odell doesn't have a big game. Who do people blame? Baker. All of a sudden, Baker defenders have to come out and defend Baker Mayfield. Now, who do they blame? Odell, right? So now it becomes this crossfire situation to where Baker defenders are mad at Odell defenders and Odell defenders are mad at Baker. They both think each other is holding themselves back when it might be the coaching staff that's holding back with some of the stuff that they asking them to do. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But, you know,
we talk about that a little bit on part 1. Make sure you guys go check that out. We talk about that too.
But it becomes this thing to where there's a part of the fan base that feels like we're not getting enough out of Odell and it's Baker's fault. And there's a part of the fan base that feels like we're not getting enough out of Baker and it's Odell's fault, right? And Baker's the quarterback. Baker's the #1 overall pick. He's going to outnumber Odell in that argument, which leads to this weird tension that exists that doesn't need to exist over this player. And the reason it doesn't happen with Jarvis Landry, despite Jarvis does the same stuff that Odell. Getting emotional on the field, Jarvis does that way more.
He has more penalties. He has more penalties than Odell.
Far more unsportsmanlike penalties. And the ones that Jarvis gets, they are worth getting those penalties because he be disrespectful sometimes. Like there was the one where he almost peed on he be out there.
He's the dude. He's the dude that the NFL. He was the poster child. That was like if an NFL receiver does this, you flag him.
Yeah,
if Odell had blonde hair, he had purple hair. I mean,
I'm not saying this to say, oh, you should be mad at Jarvis Landry too. I'm saying this to say that the stuff that people say they're mad about Odell, it's really not about that stuff because Jarvis does all of that, right? Jarvis will have drops. Jarvis has had a lot of drops.
He has a lot of drops.
In key situations. We let it go with Jarvis. We don't let it go with Odell. Jarvis has some penalties. We let it go with Jarvis. We blame the referee. We don't do that with Odell, right?
Even and it's partly years, the numbers are about the same. There's a couple more catches, and they got about 1,000+ yards. The numbers are even comparable.
But we let one slide and the other one don't. And the reason is because one, his success or lack of success is always juxtaposed nationally and locally with the quarterback. And when you do that, it's going to create tension between the fan base because there's a portion of the fan base that just has to believe that the quarterback is not a bum. And he's not a bum. Baker is not a bum. It's just sometimes two dudes ain't figuring it out. And I think that's why it's so polarizing whenever you talk about Odell. Like everybody wants to tell me Odell's washed. Odell's not getting open. I promise you, as somebody who watches the All 22 every week, Odell is getting open plenty. So is Donovan Peoples-Jones, by the way. They're just not getting the ball. And that might not be a Baker thing. That might be a Kevin thing. It might be an overall, everybody in that offense just needs to get together and have a conversation. Those things happen in the NFL where you can figure things out in the middle of the year. It's not anything that's beyond fixable. But as long as we talk about it and juxtapose these dudes, it's always going to feel like this. And I feel like at some point it's gotten on into these guys' heads where they're always thinking about, oh man, I missed Odell on that one. Now people are going to talk about that. Or if Odell gets open, can't get it. Now he can't get those yards that he knows he can get. And it's not because either player is being a diva or, or acting the ass on the sideline. Like it's just simply because they aren't on the same page. And there are a lot of reasons outside of those two that are there. But that's really what goes down to it. It's just people have to pick a side here in these arguments. And I feel like so many people are going to just by default defend the quarterback because, again, you don't want to live with a team that has a bad quarterback. And, like we've been there before. So they're going to pick the quarterback over the wide receiver. But it's not like a conflict that needs to exist. And for whatever reason, people are hell-bent on making this a Baker or Odell thing. You know what I mean? Like they can't coexist.
It's this or it's either this or that. Let me ask you this question. When we talking about when you talk about Baker, we hear this a lot. When you talk about Baker and you critique Baker, the first thing that people usually say is they go to how many quarterbacks we've had in our record since 1999. Do you actually think in covering the rest of the teams, right? You go and you check out Cincinnati and the Ravens and all these other teams. Do you think that the Browns community and fans really truly do have a stigma? Like we've had some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder when it comes to like losing your team and having that many quarterbacks and being that garbage for that long. That there's this defense mechanism where they ain't gonna let you talk about. They're not gonna just let you critique them to a certain extent. They're not gonna let you go too far.
I think that happens with all fan bases, to be fair, right? But the thing with the Browns, right, and this is gonna sound cruel, right? But when you talk to Raven fans and Bengals fans or even Steeler fans, right, instead of saying, hey, this ain't the expansion era, whatever, and we should be happy, what they usually said was, we ain't the Browns. You know what I mean?
That's the
Like they were,
crazy thing. That's
yeah,
facts.
and that's what they would say. It's like, hey, man, it could be worse. We could be the Browns. And that's what the same argument would come out of that, but it would be that statement. And the crazy thing is, even Browns fans are saying we ain't the Browns. You know what I mean? Like that's the argument that it comes down to, is that, hey, it could be worse. And in any team situation, somebody's always going to make that argument that it could be worse. My counter to that is when people kind of reject what is legitimate criticisms of Baker Mayfield and this team and the offense and everything else, is I understand that they're not 0-16. I understand they're not starting Jake Delhomme anymore. But bro, this team has evolved way past, we ain't starting Jake Delhomme anymore. Like maybe in 2019 you could say that. Definitely sometimes in 2020 you could say that. But we talking about a team that can win a Super Bowl this year. Like being better than the expansion Browns. I'm sorry, that's a disappointment. If you're just simply that, yeah, like no, the goal is to win it all, and you have everything you need on this roster to win it all. So I'm going to critique this team, and I think a lot of people are going to critique this team with that knowledge. Like when people, and this is the thing I don't get with some people, is it's weird with how people get so defensive over certain things, because to me, I know Baker Mayfield's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. I know this offense can win a Super Bowl. I know this defense is good enough to win a Super Bowl. I know this team, this coaching staff, everybody who's on the team right now, Joe Woods included, because I know people just be ready to fire Joe Woods, but Joe Woods included, right? Like everybody on this team, you can win a Super Bowl with what you have in this. You don't need to make one trade, one adjustment. If everybody stays healthy, you can win a Super Bowl with this team. I 100% believe that. And because I believe that, I'm going to be critical of this team when, even if they win, they're looking a little sloppy, because I know that the bar's here and maybe they're playing right here, right? The bar is much higher because I know they can reach that bar. There is a confidence that I have about this team that they can reach that bar, right? It's why I'm not going doom and gloom every time they lose, because I know they're going to be a good team at the end of the day. There is a confidence there that I have about this team. And what I think happens is that maybe other fans aren't as confident about this team as I am, right? Maybe I'm alone on that, because when you feel like you have to defend a quarterback after every bad game as if it's life or death, or kick people off the boat because they're saying the quarterback had a bad game, that tells me you don't really think that quarterback is good in your heart of hearts. You know what I mean? When you have to go to just straight up blind, just straight up blind, uncritical thinking of a person, that tells me that you don't really believe in this person. You just want to believe in this person for whatever reason.
Just don't be negative. Yeah. Don't you shouldn't do that to us.
And I think being negative constructively, especially, like, because I feel like I'm very constructive with my criticism.
No, you are way. Your criticism is very. I mean, it goes down smooth, man. Like your criticism isn't over the top. There's no hyperbole. You say it with a straight face. You're not making fun or jokes. Your criticism is constructive, and I would put my son in front of you and say, Quincy, go ahead and give him some criticism.
I appreciate that. But that's the thing, though. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like if you know this team is a Super Bowl caliber team, like I do, yeah, they can stand some criticism, because they should take some criticism right now, right? Because they got a hell of a way to go to get to where they can. The good news is that you got everything you need in that locker room. It's just you got to figure some things out. You got to get some things corrected there. It ain't about, look, every game, the Browns played 5 games so far. Anytime they've lost, it really ain't been about the other team. Like what happened last week, them 47 points the Chargers got, has a lot more to do about the Browns than it had to do about the Chargers, right? Like a lot more to do about the Browns. The Browns are the only team right now that can beat the Browns. Like that's my stance on them right now. And they're so good that they can go out there and dominate teams without playing well. Like that's how good they are right now. But they can also beat themselves.
You get me to my last point real quick. We gonna get you out of here. What team, like playing at their highest level, right? What team scares the hell out of you, right?
There's legitimately, G, and I'm not being arrogant here because the team's 3-2 right now. There's no team I think the Browns can't beat. Like, not even like just saying like I have confidence in general. There's no team that gives me the fear that they can exploit something that this team can't correct or have personnel matchups for. Like, it used to be that way for the Ravens for me, right? Where I'm like, I don't know what our answer is going to be for certain things that the Ravens do. But now that the Browns have JOK, they have Grant Delpit healthy. I see the athleticism on the edges. I think there's a solution there for them, right? Kansas City, I can't wait to see Kansas City again, right? Because I think if this team clicking on all cylinders, you could beat Kansas City. The Chargers, please let us see the Chargers again. There's not a single team in the AFC, Tom Brady, the Buccaneers. I think you can hold that up. I think you can definitely beat them.
To me, if say for instance they just get on their run, right? I don't like the way I've been seeing Antonio Brown play lately. It looked like Antonio Brown that got in his bag and got back in the hot tub time machine a couple years ago. And you know what Tom Brady can do in November and December and January, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I get it.
But the Browns can beat them. But they gotta play tip top. They gotta play the Browns game.
I guess where I differ on that is I guess what I'm saying here, right? And people are going, if the Browns suck this year, people are going to clip this out of context. Yeah. But I'm saying right now, right? If they stay healthy, there's not a single team in the NFL that I feel like the Browns even have to play perfect to beat. Like, I think the Browns can make a mistake against all 32 teams and beat them. Like, that's what I mean by fear, right? There are teams like when the Browns played the Chiefs a couple of years ago, or when they played the Patriots a couple of years ago, I was like, they literally have to play perfect to win this game. They cannot make any mistakes. This Browns team, and this is what frustrates me with Kevin Stefanski, it's good enough that I think you can make multiple mistakes in a game and still win. I don't even think you got to be positive on against most of these teams in the turnover ratio and win the game. Because you know what? The Browns have been like wild bad in some of these games and still have won them or almost won them.
Think about it.
They almost outscored Kansas City and they were -3 in turnovers.
They gave up 2 wide open touchdowns the other game. Just 3. Just whoo, there you go, buddy. Now here's what I will say. If they can go ahead and they can figure out a way to utilize Odell Beckham Jr., I totally agree with you. Because I feel at that point in time, if you got a receiver like that, you got Jarvis Landry, you got 2 running backs, you got a great offensive line, and we see what the pass rush could be. The Cleveland Browns got everything you need. You got 2 of everything. I call it Noah's Ark, 2 of everything. They got 2 of everything, my man. So we're gonna get out of here. Y'all can't be just expecting us to go over time, man. But you can catch us. You can catch the first episode on Quincy's channel. Make sure you subscribe to that, GB and QC. We're going to be back with you every Sunday. Make sure you catch that. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like and share. And we'll be back same place, same time. Peace.
Definitely.